Welcome to the Strategic Insights Podcast. I'm Andrew Mackel, Senior Account Executive, Strategic Information Group. Today we're having a partner spotlight. To help us with that spotlight today, we've got two attendees from one of our better partners, if not best partners, Prophix. I would like to introduce them both to you today. I have Neil Hussey and Rachel Chung. How are you both doing today?
Andrew,
Great,
doing
thank
really
you.
well.
Well, I think it's important that before we get into everything that Prophix does and how you help everybody, why don't you both give a little background to what you do for Prophix? Rachel, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I am a partner account manager at Prophix. So I manage the partnerships and alliances that are basically part of our partner network. So I help actually facilitate some of the lead generation and help kind of foster the customer service and the partnership between SIG and Prophix. So I've been at the company for a year and a half. Previously, I was actually a personal trainer for about 10 years. So this is kind of my second career, kind of in that like relationship sales space. So I'm pretty excited just to be on here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Neil?
Fantastic. Yeah, my name's Neil Hussey. I've been at Prophix for the last 4 years. Prior to that, I spent 22 years working in the mid-market ERP, enterprise resource planning, and CRM, customer relationship management software space. So I helped companies select, implement, and go live with ERP and CRM software. So always in the mid-market space. Really excited about the opportunity here at Prophix.
Awesome. So thank you both for taking the time. I know that a lot of times these can be a little bit scary or a little bit hard to get the timing right? We're both very, very busy. And taking the time for us to, take this effort to explain to the viewers and the listeners out there of what it brings to the table, I think can really resonate. At Strategic, we are an enterprise software provider. And what that a lot of times means is it's not just ERP, it's other point in specific solutions that help clients through challenges. And specifically with Prophix, I wanted to ask you, as we bring you into deals and as you help the customer base for us specifically with QAD customers, what are the challenges that Prophix helps resolve for customers? Or what's the initial question, I guess, that you get that leads you down that path before you find the multiple problems I'm sure that you help people with? But where's that gateway at when in the QAD space?
We really value our partnership, obviously, with QAD, with SIG. Most of our customers are between $50 million in revenue up to $1 billion in revenue. We also work very strategically with the same sort of industries that you align yourselves with. So I know QAD is very, very strong in manufacturing. I know you guys do a lot of health sciences, retail, wholesale distribution. Manufacturing has a lot of different angles to it. So health sciences, life sciences, retail, pharma, biotech, I guess automotive, food and beverage, if I hadn't said that already. So we hit all of those same industries. One of the things I noticed when I came from the ERP industry into FP&A, we used to call it corporate performance management. The world's kind of adopted FP&A, financial planning and analysis. So it's the same terminology. We're talking about the same thing. But one of the things that I heard from my ERP customers is they said, Neil, we have all this data, right? We have tons of data in our GL, in our subledgers. We have payroll HR data in our HRIS system, data in other systems. And they were really struggling with how do they use that information to look forward into the business for planning, for forecasting, not just budgeting, but for rolling forecasts, financial reporting, analysis of that information so that they can make more and more effective decisions about it, about how they're going to plan the business in the future. And kind of what everybody said to me over many, many years is their default was to dump that data into Excel, right? It's kind of the tool that everybody seems to know. And the challenges that they have with using Excel as that kind of a planning platform is it doesn't have things like, Excel isn't, it's not an enterprise class database. It doesn't have security. You can't lock down certain parts of it for different people in the organization. It doesn't have collaboration. So it doesn't have workflow processes where, Andrew, if you think of like somebody doing an OpEx plan or position planning or revenue planning, they want to distribute information to multiple different people in the organization. They want to make sure that it's secure, and they want to make sure that multiple people can collaborate simultaneously based on the same information. Extraordinarily difficult to do that in Excel. So these are some of the fundamental things that Prophix really addresses in using Excel for that last mile of data entry, but not the platform for analysis, for planning, budgeting, etc.
I imagine the risk that companies have with using Excel in that way without being collaborative, with having only possibly one person being that kernel knowledge part that's running that report, if you will. It's risky, right? It's not just a planning opportunity where you can't get insight, but you're also it's a very small part of the company that's in charge of possibly a very important critical data element for making decisions.
I would even add to that, like data integrations is a big one. So they've got different source systems in like a Salesforce or a CRM. You've got your QAD and even just like your HR, like your payroll, right? And so you're compiling all this data and you're not actually integrating together. So, looking at that data from like a bird's eye view from like a bigger kind of component instead of looking at everything in subsectors is a huge kind of, value add that Profix does as well. So
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly, Rachel. And Andrew, just to kind of address, I guess, a specific example of what you were saying, um, a lot of companies tell us, they have one person in the organization that really understands, how the VB scripts work in Excel, how the macros work, how to copy things from one workbook
Yep.
to another, and they're one person away from leaving the company for all of that to fall apart, right? So it's a
yep.
very difficult process to secure and to scale and to know that you have redundancy for the future. And it's a risk, right? It's a business risk having that. So one of the things we really pride ourselves about as a planning platform is that it's so simple for finance professionals to use. Like we really build it for finance professionals. And what I mean by that is there's no macros, there's no scripts in Profix, there's no programming languages. Everything is drag and drop, point and click. Like it really speaks to the language of finance professionals. And by doing that and making the tool very user friendly, it takes away those risks that you'd see in an Excel based tool.
Absolutely. You're air proofing to some degree when you start looking at dragging and dropping, as well as getting just greater usage of the tool. Rachel made a great point on integration. I think that probably primarily the reason I've engaged with the two of you the most in the last probably 3 months is when companies are reaching out to me trying to figure out how to pull multiple data sources into an ERP that doesn't do that. Because they need it for some type of analysis reporting, or they're using an outside CRM, or could be CMO data, whatever the reasons could be, and it seems to be it's bringing us back to you more and more in those types of needs. You talked about basically connecting a big part of the financial team on some of these companies from basically a little bit bigger than startups to a fairly large global organization. Um, is that more on like a controller level? Who's reaching out the initial concerns, or looking at the product? Is that more of a senior vice president, a C level? Who do you generally engage with when you start hearing these types of challenges at organizations?
Yeah,
And
you know what I've seen change over the years is we're always dealing with the Office of Finance, and if you were to rewind 20 years ago, it would be the IT department reaching out about software. But because everything's cloud based now, Profix is a cloud platform. You don't need to have any IT integration support. You don't need any IT support to run it. We run on any screen, any browser, any size, phone, tablet, PC, laptop. So you don't have to worry about that from the perspective of who you're talking to. IT is no longer a gatekeeper. So specifically, like we would get the CFO would reach out to us a lot. More often though, in especially in sort of medium to larger size organizations, they have an FP&A department or they're starting an FP&A department, right? The company says, look, like we need to go from annual forecasts to rolling forecasts. We need to do deeper analysis on our data to make better business decisions. Let's start a department. So we get directors of FP&A. A lot of people in the Office of Finance would reach out to us, but it's primarily from from the angle of financial professionals.
You talked about supporting the financial part of the organization, and giving them an actual tool and a tool set to use that allows them for a collaborative environment for basically real time access, or as real time as you can get to multiple data sources. As you look at that and how your business has changed in the last two, in your case you've been there 4 years, so Neil, as you've seen it change, what are the I say the new requirements, or what are people reaching out to you most right now, and where do you see the big demand coming from in the next 18 months?
Yeah, it's a great question. What's really changed in the last 3 years is the speed that people want information that changes. I don't want to use the word COVID, but it's like things that happened in our business before COVID and after COVID are very different from how people are talking to us. And what I mean by that specifically is, you know, organizations used to do annual planning, and then they said, it's we need to do it more frequently, right? The speed of business is happening all the time. We need to do this more frequently. When COVID hit, all of a sudden assumptions that you made about your business based on previous years, previous months and quarters were no longer accurate for looking into the future. So people wanted to revisit forecasts, budgeting, planning cycles, not just annually, not quarterly, but monthly. And this is it was sort of a tremendous burden on the finance department. Like people would say to us, look, like, it takes us 10 days to close the month. We don't have extra days to send out new worksheets to people to get, more accurate information on this month's forecast. So we really benefit that. Like we have people that say to us things like, a 10-day close period, they're down to 6 days using Prophix.
Oh, wow.
Organizations say to us, look, we can save them hundreds of hours a year of human capital, hundreds of hours just on the way that they do reporting because we automate everything. The distribution of it, slicing and dicing information so that the right information goes to the department heads, the divisional vice presidents, the people that run different segments of the business. That all happens at the push of a button. Um, we did a survey earlier in this year where we surveyed 700 CFOs to kind of talk to them and ask them about, what are things that are really important to you? And we got some really interesting feedback from that. People said to us, automation of financial processes is really top of mind. They said to us that, you know, our finance teams, they spend about a third of their time doing kind of really, repetitive tasks, compiling information, distributing it to people, amalgamating it from different sources, like not value added things around analysis. So we learned a lot from that survey. Those are some of the ways that our application has changed in the last couple of years. AI, you said what's happening in the next 18 months. Artificial intelligence is top of mind to everybody, right? Like it seems like you can't open a website today and
Absolutely.
not hear somebody talk about AI. You must have heard, this in your business too, the way people ask you. Um, we've made investments in AI years into the past with Prophix. And what I mean by that specifically, things like anomaly detection, right? When we're doing an ERP conversion, bringing ERP data into Prophix, sometimes you might have auditors that go through 2, 3, maybe 5% of your transactions. With anomaly detection, we can go through 100% of those transactions and surface things that don't look right, right? So before
Oh,
we're going to
wow.
do some deeper analysis, you want to know what's the starting point of my data. So those are ways that we really kind of put time back into the hands of our customers. Um, Accuracy of data, right? That's another big thing that we help out with AI tools, right? So, Andrew, you and I could be looking at a dashboard in Prophix. Here's some variances on, this month's sales, position planning, revenue variances, operational expense variances. You and I can slice and dice through the data in Prophix. It's all in one place. It's like pivot tables on steroids. But we also have AI capabilities that can actually look at the underlying data and say, Andrew, this is why we think the variances are the variances. So it's a huge savings of time. It's a huge improvement in accuracy. So those are some of the things that we're working on in Prophix.
That's it's interesting because both you and Rachel both hit on the three major things that we run into in every meeting, right? AI comes up, it's in the news every day. It comes up at every meeting. Integration is probably the second biggest thing I hear on a daily basis, and third is the automation and how do I give my team time back, right? You just talked about going from 10 to 12 day close to a 6 day close on average. You start looking at people spending 120 days a year on closing, and now they're spending like 60. That's a huge benefit to the organization for not just the value add, but staff and costs and overhead. So it's interesting to see that you've already put that investment in where you're at with it, And I'm sure that's got to resonate in demos when you're walking people through what they can look at, and let alone how does this make you feel when your auditor comes in, considering this is already reviewing everything that you're doing.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that, like, digital transformation, looking at ways to improve customer or even just your competitive advantage. If your competitors are completing their budget cycles a lot faster and a lot more accurate, you're able to really forecast on that accurate data instead of looking at data that might be buried in spreadsheets. And looking towards like that macro perspective, companies are going more digital. We're moving towards better software. And I think there is a level of, you know, those buzzwords of transformation, automation, like what is your competitors doing? How are we going to make sure that we're actually staying in that level of competition in our space? So within manufacturing, for example.
Absolutely. If you're not growing, you're dying, I
Yeah,
think is the term I always hear used. Um,
absolutely.
so as you made a great point, right?
Yeah.
Having all of that there to make decisions, especially and COVID was mentioned earlier, and what it's done to supply chains and what it's done to forecasting and lead times. And we take all that,
Yeah.
is there a difference? Because we talk about different size organizations we work with. Is there a difference in what you're seeing from someone on the smaller scale of who you work with, someone on the larger scale you work with, on being the primary reasons or how you're helping them with the challenges? Or is basically automation, integration, and AI can go across the board? Is it the same level of effort you're helping clients with and challenges with, or does it change it depending on size?
I think that you made a really good point talking about the different sizes of customers. Um, the problems when you boil down the essence of business processes, challenges, problems that people have, and the way that they do business, small companies, big companies, they're remarkably similar. Like I would think that you probably see this the same in ERP. The difference is scale. What scale are they doing it to? So we would have smaller companies that would have all of the same requirements for forecasting, reforecasting, strategic planning, obviously all of the elements around reporting and putting reporting packages together. They would be the same as bigger companies, but they would have to do it, the larger companies, for more divisions, more departments,
Yep.
sometimes more companies. Right? In our larger organizations that work with Prophix, we have some really incredible consolidation capability, so we can take data from multiple different ERP and put it into a consolidated set of financial statements, right?
And
Intercompany eliminations and whatnot.
yep.
So the thing I would always say about the smaller companies too. Remember when I said earlier, people are starting FP&A departments now. Um, there's only 30 to 40% of companies that have any investment in FP&A. So it's a really greenfield space for opportunities for companies to create an advantage. And the smaller organizations, they don't want to just throw labor at it, right? They want to say, look, like, for less than the cost of a single headcount, I could automate, hundreds of hours of processes in my organization. And that's where we speak to value.
Oh, absolutely.
Even
That's an ROI that's hard to measure. Go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry, I was actually talking to a customer about 6 months ago, and I was kind of walking him through our solution, and he said that he's never seen something like this, and he used to actually be a CFO. He's a consultant now, and he said he actually broke Excel. Like he couldn't add another line. And I think he was at about 330,000 or something crazy. And he said, yeah, he actually got to the point where he couldn't add any more data into a system. So I could imagine like how big this company was that he was working with, and let alone Excel, building out like pivot tables or, VLOOKUPs, like with that much data, it's pretty intimidating.
Absolutely. We've seen people try to
Yeah.
basically create MRP solutions in Excel,
Yeah.
and if they get a lot of products and they get a lot of processes, it gets pretty crazy pretty quick. I give people
Yeah.
credit. It's a lot of thought wrapped around what that solution can do, but of course, it's not the platform. So it's interesting to me. So as we're coming up to the top of our time, and I think it's really important that we touch on a couple last points. Um, you know, you're not, as you noted, tied to any ERP. And as we see some of these companies grow, a lot of times they grow through acquisition, they grow through becoming bought out by a private equity, and then all of a sudden you're managing multiple ERPs. I'm sure that consolidation piece is a pretty hot topic for a lot of customers that are, even if you're acquiring a company and you're only going to keep their ERP for a short period of time, so you move them over, there's a real benefit to having your solution there to be able to still have that data element in that platform prior to ever making any possibly core ERP changes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an excellent point. When companies have multiple different ERP systems and they merge or they buy organizations, quite often one of the first parts of the conversation is they say, how are we going to get all these people on a single ERP platform, right? How are we going to move everybody to QAD from different systems, let's say. That might be the end goal, and a very noble end goal. There's a lot of advantages to being on a single platform. Um, but we could implement a solution with Prophix that can consolidate information from multiple ERPs, give you a single set of financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, all your reports. And we measure this in weeks and quarters, not years, right? So we have a real rapid time to value of being able to do that. So, that's some of the things that I think, some of the value that we bring to the table is just being able to do things quickly. You mentioned multiple ERPs. Something we really pride ourselves on at Prophix, we've been in business since 1987. And in the software business, that's forever and a day. We started as two people, an entrepreneurial organization that grew. We're over 500 people strong, represented. Prophix is sold in over 100 different countries. We have done direct data integrations into hundreds of different ERP systems. Our data integration engine is built into Prophix. It's not a third-party tool. So we understand the scripts, we understand the queries to query data from multiple different ERP systems. It's a big advantage that we think we bring to the table compared to some of the maybe newer upstarts that might be in our space. And that adds a lot of value to our customers.
Absolutely, you're not hinging on another software. And wow, when I mean close out a meeting with value, you decided to knock that one out of the park. I'm going to let either one of you end with, when we talk to customers and as we move forward, is there anything you think we haven't highlighted on of reasons why customers with challenges in the financial space should be reaching out to you? What are other things that you could say that as we end this are reasons why, if someone sees you at a user group event or just bumps into you this information out there in a media source and reach out to your company, what's one more thing they can contact you about that you'd love to talk to them about that challenge?
Yeah. Rachel, do you want to take? I think I've dominated some of the conversation early by jumping up. I have a closing thing that I wanted to say, but do you want to add anything here?
Um, from a partner perspective, I wanted to kind of talk about like the customer experience and, being one of those like thought leadership advisors to make sure that when your customers come to you, you've got that conversation. They're asking about how they can improve their budget processes and, being that, expert in the data software world is really important to make sure that you're educated with different systems and how those systems can improve those processes, but with making sure like we're really improving some of those ways on how we can have conversations with customers, how they can actually grow and be better, and providing value as well. So, having Profix there, understanding that we are a system that actually helps improve the day-to-day processes within the Office of Finance. And that's kind of, one of the biggest things too is like really understanding what that digital transformation looks like and how that can bring value to your customers.
That's awesome. When we look for partners, and this is a partner spotlight, you
Yeah.
highlight the difference between partner and vendor, right? So
Yes.
you're bringing your solution as a partnership with a customer to help solve their business needs, and you offer that thought leadership. It's not a transactional relationship; it's actually a long term relationship, and I hope people grasp that
Exactly.
as they listen to this today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Andrew, when you and I first met, you explained a little bit about SIG and the background, a lot about the people that work for you, and what's really impressive is the breadth and depth of skills that you have at your organization. Like collectively, it's hundreds of years of human capital in understanding business processes, in helping people, operationally financial processes, and you just can't go and find that anywhere, right? Like the partner that you pick for implementing enterprise software is honestly more important than the actual software itself. There's a lot of good
Absolutely.
ERP systems out there. There's a lot of good FP&A systems out there. Why I picked Prophix when I left my ERP career, I looked at a lot of different FP&A companies. I went with the company that I felt, based on my research, had the happiest customers. And when I really drilled into the detail, they told me things like when we look at our customer base, right? We've been in business for 35 years, which is unprecedented in our space. Our average customer, average, has been with us 10 years. 10 years. That is unbelievable. We have customers that have been on the Prophix platform for 20 years. And I did not hear this talking about other vendors, right? We've always gotten our best product suggestions from our customers, right? What
Absolutely.
is it that you're trying to do in Office of Finance to run your business better, to make better business decisions, to be a more effective company? And that's the reason and way that we have driven the growth of Prophix over the years.
It's awesome. It is resonates because obviously, strategic being since 1992, we have a very similar history, if you will, when it comes to working with customers, and that same metric, if you will, when you look at longevity of how long people have been with you. And you're right. We can both track our careers back, although I can track it back to when I had hair. Uh, at that point when it was a very small list of customers and it was more of who you knew, and now it really matters. A lot of products can handle a lot of problems for customers, and it just
Yeah.
comes down to the people that are helping support, implementing, integrating, and aligning those processes. And it's more important for the person that's doing the work than the software that you pick. So very, very good. Good way to tie that up. Well, listen, both of you, there's a customer I know that we're both working on together, and I want to bring you back in possibly a few months and do a spotlight on that with that customer, and some success stories, which I think will be great to run, to tie this back into that meeting. But I want to thank you both for taking your time today. And Rachel, since I do know that you're involved with that partnership, I am gonna definitely be hitting you up for the Midwest user group, so we can put some type of
Absolutely.
social event together for some customers. So.
Absolutely, I'll be there.
You're the one with the T&E expense account, I'm assuming. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you both for your time, and I look forward to talking again soon.